曾经的我心比天高。
Once I was proud and arrogant, always thinking I had good qualities and looking down on one blind date after another. The other party was either not suitable in this way, or not satisfactory in that way. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, I would be 35 years old, and now it's hard just to find someone. Even the relatives and friends who used to help introduce people have gone silent, as if I've been completely labeled as someone hopelessly single. Now, I'm truly starting to panic, truly realizing the cruelty of reality. The things I used to insist on, like house, car, and bride price, have all become unimportant. I'm even willing to take the initiative and make contributions. I can even pay for the 3 gold pieces of jewelry myself. The wedding, banquet, and wedding photos, these formalities can all be omitted. I only wish for a sincere relationship. However, even after I've let go of all conditions, no one is still willing to come close to me. Do I really have to return to a traditional family role, learn to cook, and take care of household chores in order to be accepted? But today, when I just started learning to cook, I accidentally cut my hand, and the pain brought tears to my eyes. If I had known things would end up like this, maybe I wouldn't have been so picky back then. If I can still meet someone in the future who doesn't mind my age and is willing to live a down-to-earth life with me, I will definitely cherish him and live out the rest of my life peacefully with him.
我现在其实一直都不能接受的一个事实是
Actually, up until now, there has always been a reality that I find hard to accept. And that is, I am no longer young, because being 38 years old is indeed no longer a small age. But somehow, I still seem to be immersed in a dream, never fully waking up. I always feel like I'm still the same as I was at 18, full of fantasies about life, and still holding naive and romantic expectations about love. Every day, I still find myself overthinking, indulging in the imagination of falling in love. Moreover, I'm becoming more and more clearly aware of a certain reality. Those excellent men and women with good conditions. Most of them have already completed their life answer sheet before the age of 30 and have entered the path of marriage early on. Now looking back, it seems that once you pass 30, whether you're a man or a woman, if you're still unmarried, there's always more or less some kind of problem. The problem with leftover women is mostly because they were too picky when they were younger. High standards, many requirements, disliked this one, found that one unsuitable, always wanting this and that, hoping for someone with good financial conditions, a matching personality, and good looks as well. In the end, they gradually left themselves behind. Of course, there are also quite a few men in their 30s who are still unmarried. So the question is, how did these so-called leftover men end up being left behind? How is their situation different from ours?
我90年，今年34岁，还不到35岁。
I was born in 1990, and I'm 34 years old this year. I haven't turned 35 yet. I've been staying at home for almost a year now, and during this time, almost no one has tried to introduce me to anyone anymore. Strangely enough, perhaps because of this, I've actually become less anxious than before. I often see many people, especially some female friends, constantly saying things like, "Oh no, am I going to end up alone? Well, I guess this is just how it is for me. Does this mean I'll have to spend the rest of my life alone? I'm still single at this age. I'll probably never get married in this lifetime." Honestly, I really don't like hearing these kinds of things. After hearing them too many times, all I can feel is a flood of anxiety. I often wonder, why do we have to put so much pressure on ourselves in this way? Is it really worth it? Brothers and sisters, what I want to say is, no matter how old we are, we should never give up our hope and longing for life so easily. Take me for example, I'm 34 this year, and honestly, the only person who was introduced to me this year ended up rejecting me instead. But even so, I still feel like it's not a big deal. It's true that we've reached an age that is often referred to as the right age for marriage. We have to admit that, right? But you can't, on one hand, admit that you've reached a certain age, and on the other hand, still believe that you have great qualities and can't understand why no one is choosing you. Actually, the answer is very simple. It's just because we've reached this age, that's all. It's perfectly normal. So what I think is, instead of falling into this cycle of anxiety, it's better to accept reality with calmness and just go with the flow in life.
我是来自江西赣州的89年的蛇。
I am an ordinary woman from Ganzhou, Jiangxi Province, born in 1989. This year, I'm already 36 years old, belonging to the year of the snake. Up to now, I am still single and unmarried. What many people would call a leftover woman, or a leftover lady of advanced age. In today's society, situations like mine have actually become increasingly common. More and more men and women are staying unmarried at an older age, and social pressure is becoming heavier as a result. Actually, for a very long period of time, I've been someone who sticks firmly to my own values and stands strong in my independence. Faced with the external pressure of people pushing me to get married, I've always been clear about what I truly want in my heart. I often tell others, only when I truly meet someone who makes my heart beat, someone I'm willing to spend my life with, will I choose to enter into marriage. If marriage is only about completing some so-called life task, then I would rather live alone. I've always believed that marriage shouldn't be just about getting by in life. It shouldn't be merely a compromise to reality or a social arrangement. It should be because you've met someone you love, and you're willing to face life's ups and downs together with him, so you choose to walk forward hand in hand. However, reality is always more complicated than ideals. As my age increases day by day, more and more people around me have started talking about me. Some comments are said to my face, while others are whispered behind my back. Some people advise me, don't be so picky anymore, just settle for someone who's good enough. At your age, what else can you afford to be choosy about? If you don't get married and have children, what will you do when you're old? No matter how hard you work to earn money, you'll still be bullied in a nursing home because you don't have any children. Others talk behind my back, saying, you're too selfish, only thinking about yourself, never considering others, and not being considerate of your parents' feelings. Sometimes I can even sense, from the way others look at me, a certain strange gaze, full of judgment and doubt, as if I've become some kind of odd species, someone they talk about casually over tea and meals. These voices, this pressure, have gradually started to affect me too. They've made me begin to waver, begin to hesitate. Should I still stick to my original belief of being true to myself? Or should I, in the end, just bow my head and compromise with reality and social norms? Should I just marry some random ordinary man?
相仿还没有结婚的女生们说，你们真的不要觉得自己老。
As a seasoned older single woman, I truly want to say a few heartfelt words to those sisters who are around my age and still haven't entered into marriage. Please do not feel anxious just because of your age, and even more so, do not fall into self-doubt or low self-esteem because of it. Don't let yourself get swayed by all kinds of comments on the internet. Some people love to jump to conclusions, saying that the biggest problem with older women is being too old, as if once a woman is over 30 and still unmarried, she automatically becomes a problematic person. What a narrow-minded and deeply prejudiced viewpoint this is. Take me for example, I'm already 35 years old, still single and unmarried, but I've never seen this as a mistake or a failure. You have to understand, there are also plenty of men who are the same age as me and still unmarried. Those 35-year-old single men are also out there in the vast sea of people, still searching for a suitable partner. It's just that the person they're looking for might not be you, or me, but another older woman of the same age. Many sisters may mistakenly think, these men mock us for being too old, but then go off to date 25 or 28-year-old girls. But actually, that's not always the case. Reality is far more complicated than this kind of imagination. Sure, they may want to find someone younger, but whether they can actually get one, that's another story. Yes, those men do want to find younger women, but let's be real, everyone is just an ordinary person. Just because you want something, doesn't mean you'll get it. And besides, those men who constantly mock us for being old or no longer young, aren't saying these things because we're actually old. The truth is, they themselves aren't young anymore either. They just want to use this kind of talk to put psychological pressure on us, so we'll lower our standards when choosing a partner, so they can get a cheaper relationship, or easily marry a wife. At the core, this is more like an emotional bargaining tactic rather than them truly believing that we are worthless. Sometimes, the reason why they say such hurtful things isn't necessarily out of malice, but rather because they lack a more intelligent way to communicate with us. Maybe, in their minds, they think they are waking up the women who they believe have been drinking too much inspirational chicken soup. But the problem is, their way of expressing this is too crude, their words too harsh, and it only makes us dislike them even more. And if you think about it carefully, those men who spend their time online cursing older leftover women, are they really just ordinary people? I don't think so. Their statements are extremely radical and offensive, sometimes even filled with serious gender discrimination. They're not just ordinary people. They're simply projecting their own frustration and anger onto us older single women. Lastly, I still want to say this: women like us who are considered older are often just more selective and have higher standards. If we weren't picky, we would have already gotten married casually, and wouldn't have waited until now. So please, stop saying things like you older single women just want to marry a tall, rich and handsome guy. We've never had unrealistic fantasies about life. We just hope to meet someone who can understand us and grow with us. That's not a fantasy. That's the most basic emotional desire of any ordinary person.
我不是已经30了吗？周岁啊，按虚岁已经31了。
I'm already 30 years old this year. According to actual age, it's indeed 30, and by traditional Chinese age, it's actually 31. But I'm still not married, nor have I gotten married to anyone. This has become a heavy burden in my mom's heart. She shows extreme anxiety almost every day, constantly urging me to quickly find a partner, get married, and have children. In her eyes, my delay in getting married and having children is not only a family burden, but also a tremendous psychological pressure. She even keeps saying that she can't take it anymore, claiming that she has endured too much judgment and gossip from others. So today, I seriously asked her, exactly who is giving you so much pressure from public opinion? Who's asking about my situation? Who really knows me and who's actually gossiping about me? She unexpectedly replied that it was my dad, the one who has already divorced her. So I countered and asked, my dad doesn't even really care about these things anymore. He has already built a new family for himself. Why are you taking on all this pressure yourself? This is not something you should be carrying at all. But she still stubbornly refuses to let it go. Recently, she even forwarded me some articles on WeChat saying things like, what will happen to a woman if she doesn't get married or have kids as she gets older, pretending to be worried about me. She also says that she can't sleep well at night. But honestly, every time I come home and open the door, what I see is her sleeping soundly and peacefully. Of course, maybe she occasionally takes some sleeping pills to help her sleep. To be honest, I really don't understand, why do parents have to force us like this? If I could find a satisfactory man, I would have already gotten married. Isn't it precisely because I haven't met any decent men that I'm still single?
94年的，今年应该31了，我不知道大家有没有着急。
I was born in 1994, so I should already be 31 years old this year. Regarding dating and marriage, I wonder if anyone else has ever felt anxious about it. But for me personally, in the past year, I've really started to feel a bit anxious and uneasy. Since last year until now, I've been actively going on blind dates, but almost every time the result hasn't been ideal. You could say I've been defeated again and again, and every time it ends without any progress. Every time I go on a blind date, it's not that I'm not serious. In fact, I take it quite seriously. At first, I also think the other person's conditions are good, their personality is okay, and my first impression of them is pretty decent. However, almost every time, after chatting for a bit and having a meal together, things suddenly change. For example, there was one time when, after dinner, the guy asked me, "Do you want to go somewhere else and sit for a while? Maybe go to a little bar for a drink." Actually, he didn't imply anything inappropriate. It was just a very casual suggestion to relax. But at that moment, I said, I don't really feel like going. I'd rather go home early and catch up on some shows. Maybe it's because I've been under a lot of work pressure lately, and I'm also feeling a bit tired overall. I really don't have much energy to go out and play, and all I can think about is going home. Besides, I don't drink at all. I've never had a drinking habit. Then he asked me again, "Is there anything else you'd like to do?" I thought about it and said, "No, I just want to go home and watch some shows." I didn't actually feel that there was anything wrong with this guy, nor did I feel any rejection toward him. It's just that at that moment, maybe I was just being a bit rigid. Could it be that I've been single for so long that I've already gotten used to the rhythm of living quietly on my own? But I also felt that after hearing what I said, the other person seemed a bit disappointed. Maybe he felt there was no spark between us, or maybe he thought I wasn't interested in him. What's more, being single for a long time has really made me not very good at talking to guys. Especially when it comes to emotional topics, I often don't know what to say. My work environment is almost entirely female, and the way I usually communicate is more geared toward women's topics. So when I face men, I often feel at a loss and don't know how to respond to their interactions. To be honest, I'm really frustrated. I don't know when I'll finally stop being single.
Nowadays, there are many leftover women, and the anxiety in their hearts is actually intensifying. Just like a woman who came to my friend's matchmaking agency a few days ago. She was born in 1985, and she's already approaching 40 years old this year. When she came to the agency for consultation, her tone was mixed with a bit of helplessness and self-mockery. She said, "I realize that the speed at which I compromise can't keep up with the speed at which I'm depreciating." Although it was a half-joking remark, upon closer thought, it truly reflected her inner helplessness and the harsh reality. She said that over the years, she had gone on more than 30 blind dates, but still hadn't met a suitable partner. What frustrated her even more was that her standards for choosing a partner had dropped again and again, yet she was still repeatedly rejected by men. She recalled that when she was in her 20s, there were quite a few excellent men pursuing her. Some came from well-off families, some were successful in their careers, but at that time, she was fully focused on her work. Either she was too busy with work to date, or she thought she should work hard for a few more years first. So she politely turned down those suitors one by one. A few years passed, and while she indeed achieved some success in her career and made some accomplishments at work, her love life remained stagnant, falling into a situation of being not good enough for the high ones, but unwilling to accept the low ones. In the beginning, her relatives and friends around her still kept introducing her to blind dates, hoping she could find someone soon. But after so many unsuccessful matchmaking experiences, over time, people gradually stopped bringing it up. And she herself began to realize that she's almost 40 years old, and practical problems were becoming more and more evident. If things keep getting delayed, even having a child might become a challenge. Therefore, her standards for choosing a partner now have dropped to a level that even she finds surprising. She said that now, even if the man has been divorced, or even already has children, she would still be willing to accept it. As long as the man is truly sincere about living a life together, she feels it's worth a try and no longer clings to those idealized criteria from the past. After hearing this woman's real-life story, do you also have some thoughts or feelings? Feel free to leave your comments below and share your views. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us, and we will continue to provide better content for you. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.